They want you to see this footage. The same establishment that turns a blind eye when our streets are taken over by gangs, knives, and lawlessness. But when a decorated officer steps in to protect the public, they don't just throw him under the bus, they make an example out of him. This is the story of Lor Castle, a police constable with 9 years of frontline service. Commended twice for saving lives. A man who's literally risked his own neck to drag a woman from a flooded river. A cop who's done everything right. And what does he get for it? Sacked. Publicly humiliated. Branded a disgrace for doing his job. And here's the kicker. The thug he tackled? A 15-year-old suspect wanted in connection with a violent assault on an elderly man, and part of a gang involved in a separate attack at a McDonald's. During the arrest, a knife, a real one, fell out of his pocket. You'd think that would be the headline, right? Wrong. The charges? Dropped. The officer? Fired. And now, they've released the footage, hoping you'll watch it and join their witch hunt. But here's the problem. When you see the video, when you really look, you don't see brutality. You see decisive action. You see a cop acting quickly, firmly, and without violence to take a dangerous suspect off the street. No injuries. No complaints. Just a knife off the pavement and another potential stabbing prevented. So why was he fired? Because in 2025, optics matter more than outcomes. Perception is more important than protection. The criminal's feelings matter more than the cop's instinct. And if that doesn't make you want to stay informed every single day, nothing will. But Nigel Farage is having none of it. In his typical firebrand style, he's calling this what it is, a travesty of justice. He's accused Dorset Police of sacrificing one of their own to feed the mob, the same mob standing around filming, yelling at Lor Castle while he wrestled a knife suspect to the ground. Not one of them offered help. But they are the real victims now? Let that sink in. An independent witness, just a passerby, called police out of concern for the officer's safety. He saw a growing crowd forming around Castle. He saw people filming, jeering. And he feared things were about to get out of hand. That testimony? Dismissed. It carried no weight. Because it didn't fit the narrative. And let's not pretend this is a one-off. Time and time again, we see this creeping rot within our institutions. Officers afraid to act, criminals emboldened, politicians too cowardly to speak out. And now, it's trickling down to the front lines. What officer in their right mind would risk everything, pension, mortgage, career, just to stop a gang member who the system's going to let go anyway? Lor Castle did. And the system crushed him for it. He's not just out of a job. He's been isolated for over a year, barred from face-to-face contact, smeared, broken down mentally, financially strangled, all while awaiting a decision from a bureaucracy that might not even allow him to appeal his dismissal. This is how we treat our heroes now? Meanwhile, Dorset Police put out a statement full of polished PR fluff. Deputy Chief Constable Nigel Farage, no doubt keen to polish her progressive credentials, says Castle failed to act with self-control. Failed to treat the suspect with courtesy and respect. Are you kidding? This was a knife-carrying, gang-linked teenager suspected of assaulting an elderly person. Where's the respect for the victim? Where's the outrage that this kid had a blade in his pocket and walked away scot-free? And where's the line? If Castle had hesitated, if he'd paused, second-guessed, and got stabbed instead, would the force have praised his restraint? No. They'd have mourned him, briefly, then moved on. The truth is brutal. We now expect our cops to be part-time psychologists, body camera PR models, and punching bags, but the second they act like actual enforcers of the law, we turn on them. Farage gets it. He's been warning for years that the police are no longer backing the public, they are backing politics. Policing by Twitter. Arrests by algorithm. And now, discipline by video clip. Cropped, slowed down, and torn apart by people who've never worn a uniform or made a life-or-death decision in a split second. That's what Castle was punished for, making the right decision, too forcefully for the taste of weak leadership. Let's be honest. The kid wasn't alone. He was part of a group. Multiple individuals were on scene. Castle and his colleague were outnumbered. But none of that mattered. The risk assessment? Ignored. The fact that no one was hurt? Ignored. The confiscated knife? Ignored. The glowing service record? Ignored. And still, Castle holds his head high. Speaks with dignity. No rage. No bitterness. Just a quiet warning that officers across the country are now watching and they are scared to act. And who could blame them? Would you step into that alley? Would you grab that suspect? Would you stop a stabbing, knowing the thanks you'll get is termination, trial by media, and public disgrace? This case is a symptom of something deeper. A society that's forgotten who its protectors are. A police force more worried about lawsuits than law and order. And a media culture that glorifies the criminal while gutting the cop. Nigel Farage is right to rage. Every law-abiding Brit should be furious. Because when the people with the courage to stand between us and the chaos are betrayed like this, what happens next time? When the call comes through, and no officer wants to answer it. When the knife doesn't fall, but plunges. When no one steps up, because they saw what happened to Lor Castle. That's not just injustice. That's collapse. So remember his name. Lor Castle. Not a disgraced ex-cop, but a casualty of cowardice at the highest levels. And ask yourself, how many more have to fall before we finally say, enough? In another news, Nigel Farage is furious, and for once, even his harshest critics might understand why. Because what happened in the House of Commons today wasn't just dismissive. It was deliberate. Calculated. A public humiliation served cold by Keir Starmer, live at Prime Minister's questions. Reform UK's newly minted MP, Sarah Pochin, dared to raise a question that millions across Britain have quietly wondered for years. Should the UK follow France, Belgium, and others in banning the burqa in public spaces, in the name of public safety? Starmer's response? Not only did he refuse to engage, he mocked her, brushed her off, smirked, and then pivoted to the usual tired attack, accusing reform of planning unfunded tax cuts. As if that had anything to do with the issue at hand. As if diverting attention would silence the growing unease swelling in the country. But it didn't work. Because what followed was explosive. Farage came out swinging, not just in defense of Pochin, but in defense of every single Briton who's sick of being told what they are allowed to talk about. Who's tired of watching the political elite dodge uncomfortable truths. If this doesn't make you want to stay informed every single day, nothing will. This isn't just about the burqa, Farage thundered. This is about face coverings of all kinds, whether it's a religious veil, a balaclava, or an Antifa mask hiding violent intent in the streets of Aberdeen. He was referencing a mob that had swarmed one of his events just days before, many with faces completely concealed. Police couldn't identify them. Cameras were useless. And yet, nothing was done. You want public safety? You want accountability? Start with visibility. And yet Starmer, the so-called champion of law and order, chose to ridicule the messenger instead of addressing the message. Because let's be honest, Sarah Pochin wasn't making things up. France has already banned the burqa. So has Denmark, Belgium. Even Muslim-majority countries like Tunisia and Chad have done the same. China, Sri Lanka. The list goes on. Are they all suddenly far-right extremists now? Or is the UK just too cowardly to even have the conversation? This is where it gets even more disturbing. Because when Pochin raised the question, she did so respectfully, citing global examples, and focusing on public safety. But Starmer didn't rebut her facts, he just smeared her party. He didn't challenge her reasoning, he just launched a sneering personal attack. Why? Because the left doesn't want this debate. Because if you even question full-face veils, you're branded an Islamophobe. A bigot. A monster. And let's be very clear, this is not about persecuting Muslims. This is about applying one standard for everyone. Do we allow balaclavas in banks? No. Do we allow crash helmets in classrooms? Of course not. So why do we turn a blind eye to full face coverings in schools, shops, and public transport? Farage isn't asking to criminalize anyone. He's demanding consistency, transparency, and yes, the courage to say what so many are thinking. And what about children? Are we really okay with 15-year-old girls arriving at school in burqas, covering everything but their eyes, even while wearing a uniform? What does that say about integration? About identity? About the UK's future as a shared society? But again, Starmer dodged, smiled, mocked, as if he'd just swatted away a fringe conspiracy theorist rather than addressing a legitimate national concern. And while Starmer dances around political correctness, communities are fracturing. Trust is eroding. Farage put it best, people do feel uncomfortable around full face coverings. And pretending they don't is dishonest. Is it really so outrageous to expect to see the people around you in public? To know who you're talking to? To feel safe walking into a shop without wondering if someone in a mask has sinister intent? But here's where the hypocrisy becomes unbearable. When it's about climate protesters or anti-Brexit mobs wearing masks, the left says nothing. When Antifa rioters storm events wearing black from head to toe, nothing. But when a newly elected MP calmly suggests a debate on full-face veils, she's publicly ridiculed. Where is the equality they always preach about? And here's the real kicker. Even Islamic scholars disagree on the necessity of the burqa. It's not required in the Quran. In fact, in places like Egypt, Morocco, and the UAE, all majority Muslim countries, you'll rarely see a burqa at all. So why is the UK bending over backwards to defend something even many Muslim nations find unnecessary or even problematic? Could it be that Starmer and his allies care more about virtue signaling than actual policy? More about appeasing activist pressure than standing for British values? Because make no mistake, this isn't about religion. It's about rules, about cohesion, about the fundamental right of a society to see its citizens, to identify threats, to ensure safety without being paralyzed by fear of offense. Farage sees it. Pochin sees it. Millions of ordinary people see it. But Starmer? He laughed. And that's the most damning part of all. When presented with a serious public concern, his instinct wasn't to lead, it was to belittle. And while he plays politics, real people are losing trust, losing faith, losing patience. The British public is waking up, and not a moment too soon. Because if a call for public safety can be dismissed with a smirk, what else will they silence next? Think about that.